You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, today we're going to talk a little bit more about sales presentations. And we've talked about sales presentations in the past. And one of our recent episodes, I think, was on developing confidence or improving your confidence in the sales presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the deck itself. And after those recordings, I started wondering, if I'm a sales manager and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking at the chart of our recent sales or our pipeline or whatever gauge I'm looking at, and I start seeing, okay, well, sales used to be really strong and they're kind of getting weak now. And I'm wondering, okay, what is the problem? There could be a gazillion issues, and one of them might be the sales deck. And so what's some of your tips for me as a sales manager? And I'm sitting there wondering, is what we need a new sales deck?
Well, that's a good question. And like you mentioned, there could be several reasons for that. Maybe one of them could be related to the deck itself, especially if you're using it actively and like in every sales meeting, let's say.
Okay.
And I understand that it's not always easy to determine whether it's time for an upgrade, but it's true that these presentations, I believe, can significantly impact your ability to communicate and to communicate your company's vision, product, services, value proposition, etc., and convert those meetings into sales. So you told me that you're looking at your figures and they're either declining or stagnating. So I'm not going to dig into that, but I think at this day and age, we're not talking about 1980s or even 2000s anymore, but
Sure.
I think at this day and age, I would ask, is your presentation interactive, or are you still following some scripted text from slide 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth? Because I believe, well, it's not only me, but there is so much information about this. Interactivity increases engagement, and I think it creates the opportunity to retain for the client, for the prospective client, to retain more of what you're talking about. And I doubt a fixed, like a static presentation. Okay, dear customer, now I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about that. I don't think it provides any interaction at all to fully engage them. And I think when they're not engaged, they can disconnect and go someplace else in their minds. So I think one of the first questions I would ask if I am considering whether I need a new presentation would be, is this like the old style A, B, C, D, or is it more interactive where I can actually engage the audience, the listener at that time?
So let me see if I'm following you correctly. So one of the things I should be looking for is when I'm sending my sales force out with the company sales deck, is that deck giving them a chance to have a two-way conversation with the customer? Is that correct?
Yeah. Or is it making them sound like robots? Okay, this is the content I'm given. This is what I'm going to recite to you, dear customer.
Okay. What other things should I look for in terms of, do I need a new deck or not?
Well, I think if I were the sales manager, I think I would also ask, are my messages getting through? Like, let's say you're making a lot of presentations and you're not seeing the expected behavior changes or decisions from the clients. Of course, like we said in the beginning, there could be a million reasons for that, but it could also simply mean, in my opinion, that your messages aren't perceived or they're not landing as intended. So it may be time to design overall, not only in graphical aspect, visual aspect, but also in the structure. So it may be time for an entire overhaul, the presentation, to make sure that you are actually delivering your key points and people are understanding them.
It sounds like I, as a sales manager, I'm going to need to have a lot of one-on-one conversations with my sales force, because I can't just sit in there by
Yeah.
myself in the office and say, is this message landing well? I need to hear the feedback from the people who are delivering the presentation in front of the customers.
Hmm.
So my sales force, they're the only people who are really going to be able to tell me, well, this message is landing well, this one is not, this one is landing, this other one is landing well, this one is landing
Exactly.
not. Okay. So another
And
question I have.
speaking
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
before you move to the next question, something came to my mind. Speaking of having this conversation with your salespeople,
Uh huh.
I think it could make sense. It would make sense, I believe, to ask them how they feel with the presentation itself. I mean, are they feeling confident? Because I think the deck that you use, and it's not only my opinion. I mean, I have heard some numbers about this, but I'm not. I'm going to just throw some random numbers out there. But I think the team's confidence in the presentation directly impacts their ability to sell. And if they're not comfortable, or if they don't feel confident with the current presentation, it might as well be shooting them in the foot.
Okay.
So it could be hindering their performance. I mean, I have been there, by the way, many
Mm,
years ago when I was in sales for this company that I worked with. I was prohibited from making any changes to the sales presentation.
okay.
And looking back, I remember it was so horrible. Of course, with the thing that I know now, it's even 100 times more horrible than that. And I didn't function well.
Mhm.
I mean, can you imagine? I was almost embarrassed to show it to the client
Yeah, yeah.
and speak about my confidence at that moment. It's like, well, I have to make this presentation. I really don't want to, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, there it goes. Hit F5 and hide yourself. It was horrible. So yeah, when you have that conversation with the sales team, you can ask, are
Okay.
you comfortable? Do you feeling confident? And
Yeah.
speaking in that, another point came into my mind that
Mhm.
you might ask as a sales manager. I don't know if maybe it's related, it will be connected to your next question, but just check out the competitors' presentations. I mean, to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
if you need a new one.
Uh-huh.
Like, keep an eye on them,
Uh-huh.
and if their presentations are much more visually appealing, interactive, or they are much better they are much more able to convey the message. Maybe it's time to upgrade your game as well.
Yeah, and along those lines, okay, so let's say that I'm bought into the decision. Now I'm the sales manager and I'm thinking, yeah, we definitely need a new deck. The old one is not doing the job. We definitely need a new deck.
Hmm.
How important is visual design? Can I just fire up PowerPoint and whip one out before I go home for the day? Or should I consider subbing this out to someone with some serious visual design skills?
Well, before everything, I believe a very good design is not going to save horrible content,
Okay.
and a very good content is not going to be conveyed with horrible design. So
Mm,
one of them is not going to carry the whole weight. I think there will need to be a balance between the quality of the content and the quality of the design.
okay.
But I mean, let's be honest. You walk into a room, let's say you to deliver a sales presentation, and you fire up your laptop, you put it on the screen, or the screen, or the TV, whatever. What's the first thing that they're going to notice
Mm,
when people look into your presentation? It's going to be the design.
yeah, that's true. That's
It's
true.
going to be the way it looks. It's going to
Uh,
be the way it is perceived by their eyes. So well, in a sense, it's like going to a job interview, and you wouldn't want to show up in your pajamas, right?
true. You want
You, well,
you want to make a
look,
good first impression.
actually, that was a scene from the movie. Do you remember that Will Smith movie? It was a beautiful scene. He had to go to this high stakes job interview with I think painted pens or something
Yeah,
like
I
this.
think
But
wasn't that the movie the Pursuit of Happiness or something like that?
yes,
And
yes, that
he's
was
like
the one.
interviewing
Yeah,
for a job at Dean Witter or something. And he went
yeah,
there with
yeah.
like
Well, you
paint.
remember it much better than I do. Yeah.
He went in there with paint on his face and stuff like that.
Yes. So in that regard, well, I think at the end of the day, a polished, clean, professional, I'm not saying perfect because I don't think we can ever achieve that, but I think a well crafted slide deck will eventually tell your audience non verbally.
Mhm.
that you mean business
Yeah,
and
true.
you have put some serious thought into this.
Uh-huh. So I keep thinking of this movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. So
It
going at
was a good movie.
yeah. So if I'm the sales manager and I'm just I'm just opening PowerPoint and I'm whipping something up real quick before I go home for the day. That's kind of
Hmm.
good. I'm probably gonna produce a deck that looks a lot like Will Smith with paint on his face, and that's not gonna make a good first impression.
Well, you know how they say don't judge a book by its cover?
Uh,
I think in terms of presentations, I don't think it holds. I think it doesn't hold in sales presentations. I think the
True.
design of the presentation will be not is but will be your audience's first interaction and first impression.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think we have the luxury to say, well, yes, my presentation looks horrible, but let me give you some information about the wonderful products or services that we have.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I think I will have gained a first impression about you, and it's not going to be pleasant.
true. Come to think of it, no matter how much your content, no matter how much the words coming out of your mouth might just rock the world,
Hmm.
if your slides don't look good, the customer's still not going to be very impressed with you.
Yeah. And in that regard, I think they not only need to look good, but also consistent. I mean, I'm thinking now you're looking at a slide deck of 20 slides. Each of them are beautiful, but there is no consistency in between.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, if this is a motivational speech, the sky is the limit. You can do whatever you want. But I
Mhm.
think if you are trying to transmit credibility, confidence, give me some corporate buzzwords like Barney Stinson's posters behind him.
Yeah. It,
Teamwork, awesome. I mean, if you're trying to convey those things in the sales presentation, I
uh,
think I think a consistent use of the design, like colors, fonts, imagery,
true.
whatever, I think it conveys a sense of stability and reliability. So I think they're important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're not going to have time to go into this today, but do you remember how at the beginning of this podcast series, way back many months ago, we did like the elements of a good pitch deck? Do you remember that?
Yes, of course.
I would love to do the same for a sales presentation. So maybe
Oh, I
for
like that idea.
yeah, maybe for a future episode, we could go into like the flow of a good sales presentation and what should be in there, and
Hmm.
a kind of an outline of what should be in there. What do you think about that?
I like that. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a wrap for today then, and we'll come back at you in a future episode with the flow.
All right. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you very much, Alper.
Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.